Preah Vihear Temple. Preah Vihear Temple, Prasat Preah Vihear, is an ancient Khmer temple that was built during the Khmer Empire and is on the top of a 525-meter, 1,722 feet, cliff in the Dângrêk Mountains, in the Preah Vihear province, Cambodia. In 1962, after a lengthy dispute between Cambodia and Thailand over ownership, the International Court of Justice (ICJ) in The Hague ruled that the temple is in Cambodia. Affording a view for many kilometers across a plain, Prasat Preah Vihear has the most spectacular setting of all the temples built during the 6th century Khmer Empire. As a key edifice of the empire's spiritual life, it was supported and modified by successive kings, and so bears elements of several architectural styles. Preah Vihear is unusual among Khmer temples in being constructed along a long north-south axis, rather than having the conventional rectangular plan with orientation toward the east. The temple gives its name to Cambodia's Preah Vihear province in which it is now located, as well as the Khmer Empire National Park, which borders it in Thailand's Sisaket province, though it is no longer accessible from Thailand.
On July 7, 2008, Preah Vihear was listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
The temple was built at the top of Poi Tati, a steep cliff in the Dângrêk mountain range, which is the natural border between Cambodia and Thailand. The temple is currently listed by Cambodia as being in Svay Krum village, Can Tout commune, in Kong Sant district of Preah Vihear province of northern Cambodia. The temple is 140 kilometers from Angkor Wat and 418 kilometers from Phnom Penh. The temple was listed by Thailand as being in Bumsrol village of Bueng Malu subdistrict, now merged with Sathong Chai subdistrict, in Kantharalak district of the Sisaket province of eastern Thailand. It is 110 kilometers from the Mueang Sisaket district, the center of Sisaket province. In 1962, the ICJ ruled that only the temple building belonged to Cambodia, while the direct way to access the temple was from Thailand, but currently, as of at least 2015, the only access is from inside Cambodia. The temple complex runs 800 meters, 2,600 feet, along a north-south axis facing the plains to the north, from which it is now cut off by the international border. It consists essentially of a causeway and steps rising up the hill towards the sanctuary, which sits on the clifftop at the southern end of the complex, 120 m or 390 feet above the northern end of the complex, 525 m or 1,722 feet above the Cambodian plain, and 625 m or 2,051 feet above sea level. Although this structure is very different from the Temple Mountains found at Angkor, it serves the same purpose as a stylized representation of Mount Meru, the home of the gods. The approach to the sanctuary is punctuated by 5 gopuras. These are conventionally numbered from the sanctuary outwards, so Gopura 5 is the first to be reached by visitors. Each of the gopuras before the courtyards is reached by a set of steps, and so marks a change in height which increases their impact. The gopuras also block a visitor's view of the next part of the temple until they pass through the gateway, making it impossible to see the complex as a whole from any one point. The 5th gopura, in the Khmer style, retains traces of the red paint with which it was once decorated, although the tiled roof has now disappeared. The fourth goperet is later, from the Qing/Bafuan periods, and has on its southern outer pediment one of the masterpieces of Preah Vihear, Freeman, page 162, a depiction of the churning of the Sea of Milk. The third is the largest and is also flanked by two halls. The sanctuary is reached via two successive courtyards, in the outer of which are two libraries. Prasat Preah Vihear is the compound of words Prasat, Preah, and Vihear, which mean the religious offering of sacred shrine. In Sanskrit, Prasat means religious ICJ's judgment.
On June 15, 1962, the court ruled 9-3 that the temple belonged to Cambodia and Thailand was obliged to withdraw all stationed troops there and, by a vote of 7-5, that Thailand must return any antiquities such as sculptures that it had removed from the temple.
The Annex I map did not bind both parties because it was not the work of the Mixed Commission per the treaty. However, both parties adopted the map and the demarcation line in it, therefore had a binding character. In its decision, the court noted that in over the 5 decades after the map was drawn, the Siamese/Thai authorities had not objected in various international forums to its depiction of the temple's location. Nor did they object when a French colonial official received the Siamese scholar and government figure Prince Damron at the temple in 1930, possibly before the Thais realized the map was wrong. Under the legal principle Kataset cons entire videtter si loci debuisset ac patuisset, he who is silent is taken to agree, the court ruled that Thailand had accepted and benefited from other parts of the border treaty. With these and other acts, it said, Thailand had accepted the map and therefore Cambodia was the owner of the temple. It was clear from the record, however, that the maps were communicated to the Siamese government as purporting to represent the outcome of the work of delimitation, since there was no reaction on the part of the Siamese authorities, either then or for many years, they must be held to have acquiesced. The maps were moreover communicated to the Siamese members of the Mixed Commission, who said nothing, to the Siamese Minister of the Interior, Prince Damron, who thanked the French minister in Bangkok for them, and to the Siamese provincial governors, some of whom knew of Preah Vihear. If the Siamese authorities accepted the Annex I map without investigation, they could not now plead any error vitiating the reality of their consent. The Siamese government and later the Thai government had raised no query about the Annex I map prior to its negotiations with Cambodia in Bangkok in 1958. But in 1934 to 1935 a survey had established a divergence between the map line and the true line of the watershed, and other maps had been produced showing the temple as being in Thailand. Thailand had nevertheless continued to also use, and indeed to publish maps showing Preah Vihear as lying in Cambodia. Moreover, in the course of the negotiations for the 1925 and 1937 Franco-Siamese treaties, which confirmed the existing frontiers, and in 1947 in Washington before the Franco-Siamese Conciliation Commission, Thailand was silent. The natural inference was that Thailand had accepted the frontier at Preah Vihear as it was drawn on the map, irrespective of its correspondence with the watershed line. Australian Judge Sir Percy Spender wrote a scathing dissent for the minority on the court, however, pointing out that the French government had never mentioned Thai acquiescence or acceptance at any time, not even when Thailand stationed military observers at the temple in 1949. On the contrary, France always insisted that their map was correct and the temple was located on their side of the natural watershed, which it clearly is not. Thailand had modified its own maps, which in Spender's opinion was sufficient without having to protest to France. Spender said, "Whether the mixed commission did or did not delimit the Dângrêk, the truth, in my opinion, is that the frontier line on that mountain range is today the line of the watershed. The court, however, has upheld a frontier line which is not the line of the watershed, one which in the critical area of the temple is an entirely different one. This finds its justification in the application of the concepts of recognition or acquiescence. With profound respect for the court, I am obliged to say that in my judgment, as a result of a misapplication of these concepts and an inadmissible extension of them, territory, the sovereignty in which, both by treaty and by the decision of the body appointed under treaty to determine the frontier line, is Thailand's, now becomes vested in Cambodia." Thailand reacted angrily. It announced it would boycott meetings of the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, with Thai officials saying this step was to protest a U.S. bias toward Cambodia in the dispute. As evidence, Thai officials cited Acheson's role as Cambodia's advocate. The U.S. government replied that Acheson was merely acting as a private attorney, engaged by Cambodia. Mass demonstrations were staged in Thailand protesting the ruling. Thailand eventually backed down and agreed to turn the site over to Cambodia. Rather than lower the Thai national flag that had been flying at the temple, Thai soldiers dug up and removed the pole with it still flying. The pole was erected at nearby Morai Dang Cliff, where it is still in use. In January 1963, Cambodia formally took possession of the site in a ceremony attended by around 1,000 people, many of whom had made the arduous climb up the cliff from the Cambodian side. Prince Sihanouk, Cambodia's leader, walked up the cliff in less than an hour, then made offerings to Buddhist monks. He made a gesture of conciliation in the ceremony, announcing that all Thais would be able to visit the temple without visas, and that Thailand was free to keep any antiquities it may have taken away from the site. Civil war began in Cambodia in 1970. The temple's Preah Vihear is situated at the top of a 2,000-foot-high escarpment overlooking the Cambodian plains far below. The refugees were unloaded from the buses and pushed down the steep escarpment. There was no path to follow, one said. The way that we had to go down was only a cliff. Some people hid on top of the mountain and survived. Others were shot or pushed over the cliff. Most of the people began to climb down using vines as ropes. They tied their children on their backs and strapped them across their chests. As the people climbed down, the soldiers threw big rocks over the cliff. At the foot of the cliffs were minefields placed by the Khmer Rouge during their rule in Cambodia. The refugees followed a narrow path, the safe route indicated by the bodies of those who had set off landmines. They used the bodies as stepping stones to cross the 3 miles of mined land to reach the Vietnamese soldiers, occupiers of Cambodia, on the other side. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees later estimated that as many as 3,000 Cambodians had died in the pushback and another 7,000 were unaccounted for. General Kreong Sak's objective in this brutal operation apparently was to demonstrate to the international community that his government would not bear alone the burden of hundreds of thousands of Cambodian refugees. If so, it worked. For the next dozen years, the UN and Western countries would pay for the upkeep of Cambodian refugees in Thailand, resettling thousands in other countries, and devising means by which Cambodians could return safely to their own country.
On July 8, 2008, the World Heritage Committee decided to add Prasat Preah Vihear, along with 26 other sites, to the World Heritage Site list, despite several protests from Thailand, since the map implied Cambodian ownership of disputed land next to the temple.
As the process of heritage listing began, Cambodia announced its intention to apply for World Heritage inscription by UNESCO. Thailand protested that it should be a joint effort, and UNESCO deferred debate at its 2007 meeting. Following this, both Cambodia and Thailand were in full agreement that Preah Vihear Temple had outstanding universal value and should be inscribed on the World Heritage List as soon as possible. The two nations agreed that Cambodia should propose the site for formal inscription on the World Heritage List at the 32nd session of the World Heritage Committee in 2008, with the active support of Thailand. This led to a redrawing of the map of the area for proposed inscription, leaving only the temple and its immediate environs. However, Thailand's political opposition launched an attack on this revised plan, see Modern History, an ownership dispute, claiming the inclusion of Preah Vihear could nevertheless consume the overlapping disputed area near the temple. In response to the political pressure at home, the Thai government withdrew its formal support for the listing of Preah Vihear Temple as a World Heritage Site.
Cambodia continued with the application for World Heritage status and, despite official Thai protests, on July 7, 2008, Preah Vihear Temple was inscribed on the list of World Heritage Sites.
The renewed national boundary dispute since 2008 has been a reminder that despite the World Heritage ideals of conservation for all humanity, operating a World Heritage Site often requires use of national authority at odds with the local cultures and natural diversity of the landscape. Prior to the listing, Cambodia considered Preah Vihear to be part of a protected landscape IUCN Category V, defined as nationally significant natural and semi-natural landscapes which must be maintained to provide opportunities for recreation. However, Category V is generally defined as land, with coast and seas as appropriate, where the interaction of people and nature over time has produced an area of distinct character with significant aesthetic, cultural and/or ecological value, and often with high biological diversity. Safeguarding the integrity of this traditional interaction is vital to the protection, maintenance, and evolution of such an area. A tour that takes tourists camping on temple sites, crossing the border into Thailand issues a warning on the possibility of a rerouting of the itinerary. During the People's Alliance for Democracy's seizure of Suvarnabhumi Airport, future Thai Foreign Minister Khazit Paromir reportedly called Cambodian Prime Minister in a 2008 television interview crazy and a nak lung, commonly translated as gangster. In 1994, Thailand held a World Heritage Proposal Conference in Srisaket in which local cultural traditions were considered along with monuments such as Preah Vihear that stimulate more nationalistic sentiments. The use of passes in the Dângrêk Mountains reportedly tied together cultural communities and practices divided by a militarized and imperfectly demarcated modern borderline. Among Khmer ethnic minority, the Kue or Sui, the ethnonyms have multiple spellings, used the passes to hunt and capture elephants in the forests below the Dângrêk cliff edge, including the Kulin area, which is now a Cambodian wildlife sanctuary. Kue in Cambodia were skilled ironsmiths, using ore from Phnom Dek. While elephant hunting in the vicinity of Preah Vihear was touched upon in the International Court of Justice proceedings, the World Heritage plans overlook local culture and species protection to facilitate national revenues from tourism. One international law professor has urged that practicality calls for laying aside exclusive sovereignty in favor of an international peace park. A scholarly article concurs in concluding, since Thailand and Cambodia have brought only blood and bitterness to this place, it might be desirable to preserve it from both. It could be given back to nature and the indigenous peoples, to be managed cooperatively between the two governments in equal partnership with local communities, as a trans-border protected landscape anthropological reserve, IUCN Category V and Old Category 7. Given the massing troops in 2008, perhaps such a trans-border reserve would create not only a demilitarized buffer zone in which any future demarcation can be amicably undertaken, but a recognition of the added ecological and cultural aspects of an area which both Cambodia and Thailand may still save from the destructive and exploitative impacts of rapid development so often suffered in other ASEAN countries. The conflict between Cambodia and Thailand over land adjoining the site has led to periodic outbreaks of violence. A military clash occurred in October 2008. In April 2009, 66 stones at the temple allegedly were damaged by Thai soldiers firing across the border. In February 2010, the Cambodian government filed a formal letter of complaint with Google Maps for depicting the natural watershed as the international border instead of the line shown on the 1907 French map used by the International Court of Justice in 1962. In February 2011, when Thai officials were in Cambodia negotiating the dispute, Thai and Cambodian troops clashed, resulting in injuries and deaths on both sides. Artillery bombardment in the area occurred during the conflict. The Cambodian government has claimed that damage occurred to the temple. However, a UNESCO mission to the site to determine the extent of the damage indicates that the destruction is a result of both Cambodian and Thai gunfire. Since February 4th, both sides have used artillery against each other, and both blame the other for starting the violence. On February 5th, Cambodia had formally complained in a letter to the UN the recent Thai military actions violate the 1991 Paris Peace Accord, UN Charter, and a 1962 judgment from the International Court of Justice, the letter claims. On February 6th, the Cambodian government claimed that the temple had been damaged. Cambodia's military commander said, "A wing of our Preah Vihear Temple has collapsed as a direct result of the large stairways and long pillared causeway lead to the gopura of the first 3 levels of the mountain." The gopura are gateways leading into the sanctuary and probably had statues of guardians or minor deities installed in their rooms. The Naga balustrade between the 3rd and 4th and the top level. There, the galleries and colonnades define areas for religious ceremonies and rituals performed in and around the main shrine containing the sacred linga. The gray and yellow sandstone used for the construction of Preah Vihear was available locally. Wood was used extensively to construct a support for the roof, which was covered with terracotta tiles. Bricks, despite their small size, were used instead of large rock slabs to construct the corbelled arches. Bricks were easier to use when building corbelled roofs as they bound together with mortar and were more compact and solid than stone slabs. The sandstone blocks used for the construction of the main tower are exceptionally large, weighing no less than 5 tons. Several have had holes used for lifting the block drilled in up 24 places. The numbering of the various elements of Khmer Temple, its enclosure, courtyards, gopura, etc., customarily starts from the central sanctuary and works outwards. The gopura nearest the central shrine are given the number 1. In axial temples, the last gopura encountered by the visitor will be gopura I and the first, outer gopura, the one with the highest number. Here the traditional number is given in brackets. Thus, the first gopura encountered is described as the gopura of the first level with its archaeological number given in brackets, gopura V. The system is the same one that the archaeologist Parmentier used for his detailed description of Preah Vihear, published in 1039. Several inscriptions have been found at Preah Vihear, the most interesting of which are summarized here. K.383, known as the Stele of Preah Vihear or Stele of the Devakara. This inscription was written in Sanskrit and Khmer probably between 1119 and 1121. It narrates, by order of Suryavarman II, the life of royal Guru Devakara and how he served under 5 Khmer king, Udayadyavarman II, Harshavarman III, Jayavarman VI, Dharanendravarman I, and Suryaman II, who entrusted him with many gifts, both for himself and to be donated on their behalf to temples. Between the 1st and 2nd decade of the 12th century, Devakara was asked by Suryavarman II to go on a pilgrimage to the temples to offer gifts, preside over ritual sacrifices, and carry out improvements and repair works. At Preah Vihear Temple, Devakara offered precious objects to Shikareshvara, such as a statue, probably of gold, of the dancing Shiva. He added a gold dais inlaid with precious stones, covered the temple floor with bronze plaques, and decorated the walls with plates of precious metal. He ordered that the towers, courts, and main entrance be redecorated annually. He also distributed payments to all those who worked at the temple. This inscription is engraved on a stele found inside the mandapa. K.380. This inscription appears on both sides of the southern door on the gopura of the 4th level. Written in Sanskrit and Khmer, probably between 1038 and 1049, it contains important history about Preah Vihear Temple. It narrates the story of a local personage, Sukerman, who carried out the duties of recorder in the sanctuary and keeper of archives of the kingdom. It also tells of a royal decree requiring certain people to swear an oath of allegiance to Shikareshvara. K.381 This inscription was sculpted on the southern door jamb of the eastern palace's portico on the third level. Written in Sanskrit and Khmer during 1024, it narrates the story of Tapasvinder Pandita, head of a hermitage, who was asked to dispose of presentation in favor of Shikareshvara, the main god of the temple. K.382 This inscription was carved on a pillar and was found badly damaged in front of the central sanctuary and later